caregiving can feel overwhelming. Some days feel impossible. If you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, we want you to know this. You are not alone. There is help, there are resources, and there is hope. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. Greetings and welcome. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, the not-so-sexy podcast, episode 96. Hi, I'm your host, Jeff Edwards. Glad you're on board with us today. Hope your weekend was good, and the new week brings you nothing but good. Good news, good feeling, good health, anything and everything that's good. Here's something for you to ponder. Grief is a lonely sport, and that loneliness can make us feel unlovable or somehow deserving of what fate has brought upon us. You are lovable, and you do not deserve your grief. You do deserve love and hope and joy. Find what reminds you of this truth. A quote from Suzy McNamara, the silkworm, the magician, and their sister tree, who is our guest this week. And we'll be getting to that shortly. Plus, we'll be answering another listener question in What's New in Alzheimer's with Dr. John Huffaker. If you have a question you'd like answered, send it to us at gutpunchedac@outlook.com. Are you ready? Here we go. We are proud to be supported by Neuropsychiatric Research Center, a clinical trial center dedicated to advancing research and treatment for memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. And the fine people at Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, nationally acclaimed, award-winning home care. And Live Younger Today. Activate your stem cells for health and vitality. You can check them out online at liveyoungertoday.com. If you're new here, our 5 tenets or rules are the backbone of what we do, and they're easy to learn. 1, you must take care of yourself, because if something happens to you, who is going to take care of your loved one? Number 2, you can't do this alone. You need help. Find a good caregiver group. Number 3, make a list of people, friends, relatives, or coworkers who have offered to help, then actually use it. Number 4, create a help signal. Identify a cue or phrase to confirm your loved one is comfortable with receiving help from someone else. And number 5, caregiving. Love it or hate it, it will be your life until it's not. So give it your all. When we come back, What's New in Alzheimer's with Dr. John Huffaker.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
If you find that it's time that you must start looking for a good home care company for your loved one, I'd like you to consider talking with Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, a nationally award-winning company. They are top of the line in service. They will tell you service is their passion, excellence is their promise, and that's the honest truth. They are very knowledgeable and skilled at what they provide. On top of that, they are just really nice people who love helping others in need. They are Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's care specialists. You can find them on the web at hbmhomecare.com, or you can call them at area code 239-603-6455. And you'll find a link for them on our website, gutpunched.com. Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, your best choice for home care.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. What's New in Alzheimer's with John Huffaker.
Okay, John, we have an email from Brian B. in Naples, Florida. And he asks, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and Lewy body disease?
Hi, Ryan, and that's a great question. We get that all the time. And you have to kind of think of it this way. And if you remember, a lot of times when people talk about Alzheimer's, even Lewy body, you have to remember dementia is kind of a blanket term. And within dementia, there are multiple different forms of dementia. So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Lewy body disease is a type of dementia. So they fall within that large bucket. But we really spend a lot of time, we focus a lot on Alzheimer's because when we look in that bucket of dementia, Alzheimer's represents about 70 to 80% of all forms of dementia. So it's the big elephant in the room. It's the most common. One thing, the easy way that we kind of hallmark a symptom related to Alzheimer's is that people typically report like a gradual onset of short-term memory loss. So it happens slowly over time, and it's that immediate short-term memory that is affected first. Lewy body, it represents about 5 to 10% of that big bucket of dementia. So it is quite a bit smaller, but there's still lots of individuals impacted by Lewy body disease. Lewy body looks a little bit different. Those individuals usually start to lose their executive function. Executive function is like the ability to pay attention, complete tasks, things like that, not necessarily their short-term memory. Those individuals can have some impact to their movement. They'll start to show some movement disorder. So they present differently, but they're both forms of dementia. And then to add even one more layer to that is individuals can have mixed dementia. Now, there's no rule that you only have one. So an Alzheimer's patient could also have Lewy body. A Lewy body patient could also have vascular dementia. So there is a component that we have to look for and try to identify, is there even more than one component or one form of dementia we're dealing with?
Oh, thank you. Well done. Up next, some background information on our upcoming guest, author Suzy McNamara.
Every day, I talk with people who say, I don't feel as sharp as I used to. My energy is low. My memory worries me. Hi, I'm Peggy Sealfond, board-certified health coach and caregiver. I share patented science-backed technology supporting your body's natural repair, helping improve sleep, cognition, and vitality. Learn more at liveyoungertoday.com. liveyoungertoday.com.
Here's information about the author, Suzy McNamara. Suzy McNamara is the author of The Silkworm, The Magician, and The Sister Tree, a deeply human exploration of caregiving, grief, faith, and enduring love. A poet, mother of four, fundraiser, lawyer, secular Carmelite, and widow. Suzy writes for those navigating loss and the often invisible weight of caring for someone they love. In 2024, Suzy lost her husband of 37 years, Bob McNamara, to posterior cortical atrophy, an aggressive form of early-onset Alzheimer's, after caring for him at home for 5 years. Months earlier, her sister and lifelong best friend, Elizabeth Muslin, died from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. These overlapping losses shape her perspective and inform her writing. Suzy's work offers particular insight into early-onset Alzheimer's, where illness dismantles identity during the years when marriages, careers, friendships, and family life are often at their most active. She writes honestly about the daily realities of caregiving, including isolation, exhaustion, and the quiet labor of preserving dignity, countering shame, and holding on to meaning amid uncertainty. Suzy believes grief is a lonely sport, and survival depends on community, shared language, and the courage to name what is often left unsaid. Grounded in sustaining faith practices, she writes to walk alongside readers as they navigate their own losses. Suzy continues to find meaning through her lifelong love of books, movies, and music, interest she once shared with her husband and sister and now shares with her children and the wider community she has built. We're coming back with Suzy McNamara.
We'll be right back to Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Your brain is who you are, your memories, your personality, your life. At the Neuropsychiatric Research Center, they're committed to helping you protect it. If you're 50 or older, you're invited to our free memory screening event where you can learn about a breakthrough in early Alzheimer's detection, the p-tau 217 blood test. This cutting-edge test may detect Alzheimer's-related changes earlier than ever before and is offered only to eligible participants based on screening results and family history. Why call? Because a quick confidential memory check can give you peace of mind mind, help you establish a cognitive baseline, and connect you with research opportunities that could change lives, including your own. Call Neuropsychiatric Research Center, located in Fort Myers at 239-939-7777 to schedule your free memory screening today and see if you qualify for the p-tau217 blood test. That number again, 239-939-7777. Your brain matters. Let's protect it together. The p-tau217 blood test is available only to participants who meet eligibility criteria determined during screening.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
I'm on the phone with Suzy McNamara. How you doing today, Suzy?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So let's get right to it. How and when did you find out that your husband, Bob, had posterior cortical atrophy, which is an aggressive form of early onset of Alzheimer's?
So we found out in the fall of 2019. He had been definitely a different person for a few years before the diagnosis. So I knew that there was something wrong with him. He had been misdiagnosed with clinical depression a few years before he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But we got the definite diagnosis of Alzheimer's in September of 2019.
Okay. Now, what was your and his reaction to the diagnosis?
Well, since I've been living with this person who had become so different, I was already upset. I knew there was something very wrong with him. I had been alerted by our internist that he had some sort of serious brain disease, but the neurologist would give the firm diagnosis. So when the neurologist did say that it was Alzheimer's, I knew there was already something wrong with him. And I was looking at his MRI. It looked like a horror show. There was clearly parts of his brain that looked black instead of white, and hearing these words that he had Alzheimer's. There's a certain amount of almost like validated, at least that's how I felt. We had such an incredible connection from the moment we met, truly. We just always knew what each other were thinking. We loved all the same things. We could talk all day long about books and music and movies, and we just were so connected. And that connection had already lessened quite a bit by the time he was diagnosed. So seeing that there was a medical reason for that, at least there was a confirmation of what I was feeling. But then the realization that it was Alzheimer's and what it would mean for my poor husband in terms of what his life would look like, that horrifying reality started seeping in. You just are overcome, or I felt overcome by grief. But then the reality of what the next few years are just going to be hard. He was the smartest, funniest man in any room he was in. Mm-hmm. And so much of that was gone. That was going to lessen over time. The amount of care that he would need, that was frightening, of course. How would we take care of him? How would we protect him? And very much wanted to keep him home. So what was I going to do to make sure that that happened? It's overwhelming.
Yep. How did he take it? Did he understand what the circumstances were?
Especially, this is a different kind of Alzheimer's. So no matter what you know about Alzheimer's, his was very different because it affected the back of his brain. So he had obviously known something was wrong with him for a while. And he was an attorney, but he did practice a kind of law that addressed medical issues. So he had a fair amount of medical knowledge. He actually thought that he might have Lewy body syndrome, which is somewhat similar to the kind of Alzheimer's that he had. So I think it's funny because as soon as the cat was kind of out of the bag, that he couldn't hide it anymore, that he was going to have to see a neurologist, I think he was a little bit relieved because he had been carrying this burden. He was terrified for years because he couldn't see very well. He couldn't understand numbers anymore. He was a litigator, so he's in a courtroom where he's expected to have this command over facts and figures, and his brain didn't work that way anymore. And it was just so terrifying for him. So I think there was a certain amount of relief. Then the world comes crashing in. Then he loses his job. Then friends, once they find out he has Alzheimer's, start treating him differently.
Right.
And that was truly devastating to him. The first couple of years after his diagnosis, he really struggled. He was just emotionally a wreck, crying every day. It was just so awful. When I found out his diagnosis, my whole mission was going to be to bring joy to his life in the time that he had left. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty tough because the world had other plans for him, unfortunately.
Sure.
But we did our best, but so yeah, it was tough. He had a hard time telling people, especially our kids, both had a hard time telling him that it was Alzheimer's because just the word Alzheimer's is so so scary to people.
That's why they don't want to talk about it.
You definitely don't want to talk about it. And there can be, some people feel that there's a certain amount of shame attached to that disease, which is so completely unconscionable to think that way. I mean, it's a disease. And he felt like such a failure because his brain wasn't working. And that was so much a part of his identity. So I kept having to say to him over and over again, you did not fail. You got sick. It was tough.
What did you do after you heard the heartbreaking information? Did you look for groups to join or to find out more information? Is there something up in your area that provides resources for you?
Well, the neurologist's office definitely had some resources. But to be honest, his form of Alzheimer's is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And so some of the resources weren't really relevant to us. One thing that did help, I joined a Facebook group for spouses of people with his particular kind of Alzheimer's. And it's international. In fact, at least at the time that I was participating, most of the members were from the UK. And they seem to be like way ahead of the game in terms of knowledge and resources and information. But I don't know why in the UK. That group really was incredibly helpful to me because they had a lot of data, a lot of resources. They had something which outlines the 7 stages of the disease, the 7 stages of posterior cortical atrophy. And that was incredibly helpful to me because it made me feel like I had some kind of control in this out of control situation. I could tell reading through this resource that he was probably at stage 4 by the time he was diagnosed. And it was on the money. It was incredibly helpful. It really was. A friend of mine who we met after Bob was diagnosed, and her husband had early onset as well, and a couple stages ahead of Bob. She ended up starting a nonprofit organization for families of people with early onset Alzheimer's because the issues can be so different. You know, if you're older and you get Alzheimer's, you may have already retired, but somebody in their 50s or even 40s is still working, most likely. So there's job loss, there's marital issues that are different because it's a younger couple. A lot of different issues. And then plus for the kids, her own children were young teenagers. The issues of having a dad who all of a sudden is a completely different person and you're watching him get worse and worse and worse every day. It's just so devastating for teenagers.
It's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah. So she created this organization, which is wonderful. It's called Lorenzo's House. It just provides a lot of support for families dealing with the issues. She was very helpful.
How did you work to protect your husband's sense of worth as it began stripping away at his identity? And some of the signs and symptoms that you mentioned, I did a little homework on it to find out really what it was. How do you take care of somebody?
It was definitely one of our biggest challenges for our kids and I. He was just such an incredible person, so smart and loved so many cultural things like music and movies and books, English literature, poems. And he remembered a lot of it. And so we did try to always play the music that he loved, talk to him about the poems that he loved, and just keep that part of his wonderful intellect. But I would say what really helped him the most in terms of him keeping his identity and feeling like he was still the same person were his friends. He had some wonderful college and high school friends that just treated him the exact same way. They would take him on weekends, take him out to lunch, take him to ball games, all this, and just treat him as though he was the same. For some reason, these men were just so different than most of the world. They saw Bob as the buddy that they loved. And nothing was different. Nothing had changed. And it was so wonderful for the kids and I to witness that too, to see the man that we loved and were losing, to see him treated that way. It was really incredible. So we tried to spend as much time around people who treated him that way. We were lucky to have that, and not everybody is lucky enough to have friends that are so loyal, just have the biggest hearts, and just seem to understand that that's what's so important is Alzheimer's really steals who you are. And it's just so tragic for the person suffering from the disease and for their family. Those guys just seemed to understand that and really celebrated who he was with every time they spent time with him.
There has to be an element of kindness and respect because the individual with the illness is not causing the problem. It's the illness causing the problem. And you have to treat him with that. You have to treat him with kindness, with respect. Let me ask you, you lost your sister while you were caring for your husband. How did that change the way you understood grief and endurance? I mean, it's like a double whammy.
It was, yeah. I mean, my sister was my best friend. And I started every day talking to her on the phone, talked to her several times throughout the day. And she was just the person in my life, besides my husband, that always had my back.
Right.
I was the greatest in her eyes. It's so tough to lose that. But also, Bob was first diagnosed. One of the first self-soothing thoughts that I had was, well, I still have Lizzo, my sister. I won't be alone. And then she died a few months before he died. And at the time, Bob was just entering the final stage of Alzheimer's. So things were really challenging at home. So I couldn't really face the fact that she had died. She was my baby sister. I really could not process her loss while Bob was so sick and really very difficult to manage. Things were incredibly stressful. It was tough. Then he died just a few months later. The thing is, the two of them were the two people that made me who I am.
Right.
And losing them at the same time was very destabilizing. Just kept saying to myself, why am I still here?
That's a normal thing.
I think it's just normal grief.
Mm-hmm.
She was just such a wonderful person in every possible way. She was perfect. She would have been the perfect person to be with me while my husband, who she loved, to watch him just die in just such a really difficult way. So it was hard for me to understand the world without the two people that were the two halves of my heart being in it. I just didn't know how to feel things. I talked everything through with my sister or my husband. And Bob, he wasn't able to have those conversations anymore. It was so sweet because he couldn't understand what had happened, but he knew from hearing her name that something had happened, but he couldn't really understand relationships anymore or events. So he just kept pulling at the sweatshirt that she gave him like every morning for me to put it on him because he knew there was something wrong. It was just so sweet, really, really sweet.
In your book, you describe caregiving as a search for joy among ruins. What moments helped you and your husband stay connected? And what helped you stay connected with yourself? You touched on it here. As a really loner now. It's tough.
Really tough. It is. Bob and I, from the time that we started dating, really connected through music and literature and movies. And that is how we could bring joy. I don't think he understood people's relationships to him, but he knew which people were his people. And he knew I was his person till the end. Like maybe 2 years before he died, he woke me up in the middle of the night and he was like, Suzy, you're a single woman and you work so hard. If I can ever do anything to help, talk about gut punch. That was a gut punch for sure. But just having the people that he loved around him, and if we played the music that he loved, that brought him joy. I think for myself, seeing my kids feel good because it was so tough for them to watch their father, who they worshipped, just dissolve. So awful. So if I saw them doing well, or if he seemed happy, that did bring me joy. I have a very strong faith, and that faith brings me a lot of joy. I'm lucky to have that, and it brings me hope. Thinking about Lizzo and Bobby in the next life, being happy and laughing together, that brings me a lot of joy. Just spending time with the people that I love brings me joy.
I was going to ask you about the faith journey was not straightforward. How did it become a source of strength during the seasons?
My family was Jewish. Father was atheist, but I converted. And from the time I was 14, I knew that I wanted to convert to Catholicism. So when I was 20, I did. And it's funny because I have to say, I feel like there was, in some way, God knew when I was such a young girl that there would be a time when I really needed faith. And this was the time. If you do have strong faith, you really do believe that there is a next life, there is an afterlife, there's a heaven. And knowing that for my sister and my husband, that really helped. I mean, that's understating it for sure, that it wasn't the end for them. It was the end for our time together in this life, but it was not the end for them. That meant everything to me. And I'm a strong follower of St. Teresa de Avila. I mean, I read her all the time. When I read her writings, I just feel very connected to her. There's something about the way she writes or the way she thinks that really connects to me in a very meaningful way. And she writes a lot about the need to cocoon ourselves, to be like the silkworm, cocoon ourselves. When she's using that metaphor, she uses it to describe the process of becoming close to God. I thought that was a great metaphor for caregiving too, because so much of the outside world is just so harsh when you either have Alzheimer's or caring for somebody.
Right.
So that was really helpful to me while I was caregiving. But also she talks a lot about suffering, and Bob really suffered. He suffered physically, he suffered emotionally. Terrible things happened to him because of this disease. So I watched a lot of suffering, which is devastating for any caregiver. And my sister as well. I mean, physically, she suffered terribly before she died. And Teresa talks a lot about the gift of suffering and how it brings you closer to God and how God will not abandon you. And just those words really helped me.
Sure.
Because just watching the two people that you love the most suffer so terribly, you really need somebody to support the feeling that this isn't all going to be for nothing. It's just so awful to watch.
So I was going to ask you, the silkworm, the magician, and the sister tree. Now,
Yes.
You just kind of described the silkworm. Why that title, and where did you get it from?
You know what's funny is when I was thinking of a title for the book, my original title was, because I wanted it to be about Bobby and about Lizzo. So I wanted to call, and I just like sort of lyrical titles because I'm a English literature nerd like my husband. So I wanted to call it James Joyce and the Sister Tree just because Bobby was a huge fan of James Joyce. I was convinced that that would not be a good title because it would just confuse people. Not that the silkworm won't, but then I really wanted faith to be part of the title, but in a way that I understood and some people would understand, but other people would have to discover. The silkworm, most people wouldn't look at that term and think it's about faith, but many people will. And then I go to great length describing it in the book. The magician refers to the magic between a husband and a wife, or just any two people in love, and also between two sisters that are very close, because the book is so much about the magic with those people and myself. And then I talk a lot about how it went away. So that's a really big part of the book. And then the sister tree, I have a tree for my sister with a memorial plaque in a park near my home. And that has become the sister tree because I invited people who had lost their own sisters to bring a stone with the sister's name and place it by the tree so that we could all have that tree as a place to visit our sisters. And it's just been this incredible experience with community. And we will walk over together and place the stone. And then my friend will tell the story of her sister. And I just love hearing those stories. It's such an amazing feeling to share both the grief, but also all the love between two sisters with these people that now have a place to go visit their own sisters.
That was a great idea.
Oh, thank you.
How can our listeners get a copy of your book? Where do they go? Can I get it on your website?
Oh, that's so nice.
Do they have to go to Amazon or other places? Tell us.
So it is going to be released, I believe, by the end of May. It will be on Amazon, but it's also going to be on the Barnes & Noble site. They can also visit my website because there will be links to both of those places so where they can buy it.
Good.
Or maybe they can come to a book signing, depending on where you live, because I'm starting to schedule those. It would be really fun.
What's your website address?
So it's SuzyMcNamara.com.
But it's spelled with a S-U-Z-Y. I really would like to thank you for your time today and the sharing of what was and is a very personal journey and how you fought your way through it. You've got a great attitude. It's not an easy journey.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
Sorry for your losses.
Yep.
Again, we thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I've loved talking to you.
Hope you enjoyed that. Up next, a look at our resources.
Are you the caregiver for someone living with dementia? You're not alone. The Dubin Center in Fort Myers offers free educational classes and support.
The Dubin Center has given me a shoulder to lean on.
Call today or visit us at dubincenter.com to learn more.
Our resources are very important. If you're not sure where to turn or how to connect, we'll be here to help bring you trusted resources. You can reach out to the Dubin Center at dubincenter.com. Then there is Neuropsychiatric Research Center. Find them at nprc-southwestflorida.com. Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care at hbmhomecare.com. You can check out the Alzheimer's Support Network at alzsupport.org. And to find your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, you can visit their website or call their toll-free hotline at 1-800-272-3900. Now, they also offer an outstanding resource called Dementia Care Navigation, powered by Ripple and the Alzheimer's Association. It provides free, personalized dementia care, including a dedicated care navigator and tailored resources for caregivers and people living with dementia. You can get connected by calling 855-271-2662. That's 855-271-2662. You take the first step. We also mention the guide program frequently. It's another excellent resource that provides help and respite care, and it's free. You can search for it online or visit Dr. Perry's HealthSpan Partners at https://healthspansouthwestflorida.com. Another resource worth checking out is Aquilane Clinical Research at aquilaneresearch.com and Alzheimer's Support Network at https://support.network. Our website is gutpunched.com, and the email address is gutpunchedac@outlook.com or jeff@gutpunched.com. And to every caregiver listening, thank you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for spending your time with us. You're not alone. There is help, and there is hope. This is Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, and we'll talk again soon. God bless.
This has been Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, with your host, Jeff Edwards. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to us on all the platforms, like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Podbean, and more. If you have a question or want to get in touch with us, our email is gutpunchedac@outlook.com or jeff@gutpunched.com. Caregivers, you don't have to do this alone.